Morning, everyone. This is the In-Situ training session today. My name's Alice. I'm the assessor at Silvalea. And in the office today, demonstrating the session, we've got Amanda and Judith. Just if everyone could mute themselves and also turn their cameras off, that would be great. We are going to be recording the session for people that couldn't attend. If there's any questions throughout the session, please just put it in the chat box. I'll answer as many as I can, and then any that I feel would be better for Amanda to answer, I'll let her know when the time is right. I don't think there's anything else I need to say apart from the fact that I did send out the in-situ poster to you guys with on the attachment. So we're going to be following that, but Amanda will elaborate more on it. But I hope you enjoy the session, and I'll pass you over to Amanda and Judith.
Thank you very much, Alice, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session. So as Alice has said, we are going to look at slings for extended use, longer term, in situ. So we'll look at the slings on the poster. But when deciding whether you're going to leave a sling in place or not, it has to be carefully considered by all healthcare professionals. So they must take into account lots of different things, the cost, the organisation policy and things like that. It's not a simple decision. So a full care plan must be established based on the best clinical practice for that client, weighing up all the risks of whether it's beneficial to leave the sling on, taking into account, the carers, how many carers. So, each case is individual, but if handling needs to be reduced and minimising the shearing of inserting and retrieving the sling and dragging and things like that when applying. So if that all needs to be minimised, then we can offer some options of slings now. But I must emphasise that monitoring still needs to be done. So you must always make sure that there's regular checks, full pressure, turning schedules and things like that, repositioning. So particularly with anyone that's at risk. And you must always remember that the sling is not a pressure relieving product. So it's important that if there's any part of the sling that could create pressure, is to remove them. So, we must really think about this. We're often asked whether the slings have been pressure mapped. And we have done pressure mapping, but quite honestly, the results are quite misleading because you've got to take into account things like the clothing of the patient, the correct seating, the correct positioning, where the foot plate is positioned. How long do you expect to leave that person in the seat? The sling choice, the sling fabric, the size, all this needs to take into account. So, it's all about a balanced decision. And hopefully by the end of the session, we'll be able to give you the choices for consideration. So I'm going to start by if Alice would kindly bring up the poster. If you haven't got this in front of you, then it will be sent to you. But the poster shows our popular in-situ slings. And it's really a summary of the session. So there are 6 styles, and we're going to look at each of them in detail and talk about the advantages and limitations of each style to help you with your choices. We'll talk about the fabrics we've got and things that you can add on. So hopefully by the end of the session, I'll give you more of an idea and certainly give you choices for your individual scenario. Thanks, Alice. So just to explain, we are product specialists. We're not moving and handling advisors, and we, apologise for that. But we are going to be using a nice open chair. It's going to be with Judith, who's a really compliant model. We're going to use an overhead hoist at the moment. We are in a temporary training room here, so I apologise for the lack of space. We don't have a bed on this occasion, but I will talk about, applying products on the bed. But yes, so if you can bear with us on that, we'd be very grateful. But if we look at the first product, I'm going to show you the straight leg, the in-situ straight leg. Alice, if you can just bring up this, because every product we talk about this morning is featured on the website, and you'll be able to get lots of further information from the website. But it looks like this. So there's helpful photographs, helpful points about the style. The fabric choices are detailed. There's a fitting video. But if we can just look at the data sheet. So the data sheet for this particular style will encompass everything you need to know. So it will have all the codes, the sizing, the fabric, the safe working load, and information about the sling. So this should help as a reminder after the session. So, and then you've got the sizing guide. Sizing's always tricky, and I know that, but if the patient comfortably fits into these sizes, then you can then select a standard sling. When the sizing is disproportionate, then of course we all need a bit more help, and we can help with that too. So the sizing guide's there, instructions, so that will lead you to an instruction manual, and then you need to just scroll to the appropriate style, and it will give you a basic fitting instruction sheet there. So hopefully that will help. So if you come back to me, please, Alice. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Silvalea have now changed all their slings to have a woven label. I'm going to just bring this one up. This is a standard sling, but certainly you can see the label. It's woven, fully woven. Hopefully you can see that. It's got everything that you need to know on the sling label. The woven ones tend not to fade, which is a real plus. Certainly you must always check that the label is legible. So encourage all carers to check before applying the sling so that they can read any safety information on the label. If the label is not legible, then it does contravene the LOLA regulations. So therefore it should be withdrawn. But the label will give you the safe working load, washing instructions, codes, any safety information. So certainly it will give you a lot of help. The sizing label, standard sizing label, they're also woven. And on the back is a date of manufacture. A service label there. Again, that's got a unique serial number, which for traceability is useful. But that's woven also with a little tab on the back to put a name on if needed. So just to point out the label, thank you.
Mandy, just
So
very quickly before you go on ahead, if
yep.
anyone can't see Amanda and Judith fully, there's 3 dots next to Amanda's name. If you click on those, it will put the option of fit to frame, and this will give you a much better picture and full picture of the training studio. So if you just click that, that should help.
Great, thanks, Alice. Right, I'm going to look at the first style. So the first style on the guide, if you've got it, is the straight leg sling. So this is a straight leg style universal shape. So if you're used to slings, a universal divided leg with an arched head support. So with our in-situ slings, they're made slightly different. So they're made all in one piece. So we're avoiding any extra seams that could cause potential pressure. So they're tailored so that the body buckets within it, so sort of slightly mirror images the body shape. There's no handles for positioning. Again, they could cause pressure, so we encourage people to guide by using the sides of the sling. The leg sections will always have a slip fit fabric, so slip fit to both sides, which is to help insert the leg sections. So on this one, because it's a divided leg sling, easily applied within the chair. I'm just going to put this on Judith. Of course, she's going to be really helpful. but we need to ensure that we get the sling to the base of spine. So ease of this session, Jude's going to help. Base of spine, and then the leg sections, as I said, because of the slip fit, will be able to slide in easily there. Now, if you do struggle to get the legs in or any in the sling down, slide sheets are fantastic. Slide sheets or mitts. These slide mitts, you know, if you're struggling and something's caught, you just put your hand in and smooth it. You know, that they're really helpful to help with anything that's stuck, to ease it in. So slide mitts are available to help. So once you've got the leg sections through, we've got a red modesty, and that feeds the legs together to keep them and prevent them from abducting. So, you know, just keep the legs together. Again, if you don't want to do that, the legs are naturally splayed, it's fine. It just needs to be carefully risk assessed if you don't use that modesty. So I'm just going to show you the standard way of using it. Now, the hoist we're using today is one of our ranges that we supply. It has got a very clever shawl clip. I'm just going to show you this because it's quite an innovative style, and certainly available and versatile to hook onto most existing tracking systems. And the shawl clip flicks up. Hopefully you can see that. So it clips up, and then you apply the tape so it won't slip off. They're available in different widths. Also, there's a portable one, but I'm just using the one on this one at the moment, which is the adult one. It's a bit wide for Judith, and I'll talk about hoists as we go, because the success of the sling does depend on the right hoist as well. But I'm just going to hook this up so we can have a look. Colour coding on the tapes. I'm going for red at the moment. Are you right, Jude? Thanks. Red shoulder. And I've gone on a green leg. So we'll just gently take up the slack. Hang on. It's important that you do things slowly, gradually, and check, because we hear so many stories whereby one of the tapes hasn't been hooked up, and then of course that's resulted in an incident. But if you just do it slowly and take a bit of time just to double check, then we can ensure that the sling is safely applied. So as I said, it's a general purpose shape. We call it the straight leg. If we just turn it round, we can see it's giving support to the legs there. The leg section needs to make sure it does support the legs towards the knee. If it's positioned further back, then it's going to be uncomfortable, and it won't be the right fit, and possibly can slip. So make sure it does come towards the knee. Full body support. As I said, it's very smooth. This is the Superfine Plus fabric, which I will explain in a moment, but certainly very smooth around the body. It's got a built-in head support. All the slings come with or without head support. This one has head support on, and the head support has these removable bones. Lots of people find them a little bit too rigid. You need to put your head back, Jude. So it will work perfectly well without those. Certainly they need to be taken out for laundering, but the head will nestle within that quite nicely because we've got this tape, this head support tape. And it means that you can feed it through the shoulder loop and then back through the slider to adjust for positioning. So you can lengthen it to recline a bit more or tighten it. So because you've got this separate head support tape, then of course you don't always need the bones in. If there's a sling without the head support tape, the bones are needed to keep the head support up. But because of this, we can take the bones out. So it's a good style, quite straightforward, simple. I would say it's great for just, your standard situations. You've got someone that's fairly compliant. If they're very wriggly, and if Juice get wriggly and extends, then this style can actually shoot up into their groins, so it may not be as comfortable. So use this and think about this as a standard situation. If someone has got very painful joints, then this, as it comes through, goes up to the hoist. It can slightly pull through and externally rotate the hip. So if you have that type of situation, someone that's got painful joints, arthritis, osteoporosis, think about a different style, because it can just subtly do that and it could be causing more discomfort. There's a little bit of access for a toileting. You can see here that you can, with the divided leg sling, still carry out a toilet transfer. So it is possible. But however, once you're sat in this, and if it's on for an extended period, just need to be mindful that there will be binding because of the aperture. So this is where you've got to weigh it up. It's all about working it out and finding the most appropriate style. But we can, if we just take the tapes off and just take the leg sections to the sides and fold them to the sides. If there's room within the chair, then that reduces the amount of sling underneath. So it's with this style, you can certainly do that, particularly if you've got the slot type fixings. Now, the safety slot, I'll show you close up. Some slings can come with these safety slots on if you request them. It's a streamlined tape, works exactly the same way as a loop, color coded accordingly, but it will fold neatly. Also, it doesn't get tangled up in wheels, because the wheels of the wheelchair or hoist will just roll over them. You can't get your hands caught in them like you can with loops. So there's a lot of benefit for the slots, and you just need to request them. So that's the silver safety slot. More information on the website if you need extra information. So we've looked at one style, and we've looked at this style. If I just take it off, hold it up to you. This is the Superfine Plus fabric. So this is a spacer fabric. It is spongy. It is a mesh, so you can use it for bathing. And we often provide several, so there's one use for bathing and one for dry. It is a thicker fabric, usually black for identifying. So if you think about a spongy type, it will compress down, but comfortable. There's a little bit of stretch. It will hug the body. So a nice fabric for longer term use. So it's the Superfine Plus. This is the plus one. Has a safe working load of 220, which is 35 stone. So that's the In-Situ straight leg. Let me check, Alice, are there any other questions we haven't covered for this style?
Somebody's just, Sarah said, can you demonstrate how to fit slings with a slide sheet? But I just wanted to raise, obviously we are in a temporary studio, and this is something that we'll be able to do when we're in the new studio. We will repeat the session again. It's not a problem, but it will probably be easier in the new studio.
Absolutely, and there are lots of tips and techniques with slide sheets. They're great, particularly if you are applying on the bed, because if you've got flat slide sheets, I always think 2 flat slide sheets introduced underneath the patient, and then you feed the sling between the layers. Need 2 carers, of course, so the one carer then is the one side of the bed and the other side. Feed it through, and then you've got lots of movement between, so it's sandwiched between the slide sheets to apply it. The other way is if you've got a slide sheet on the back of the chair, so a smaller one, and then that'll help introduce it behind. Certainly if you know you're trying to get it into a tighter chair. If you need space to get the leg sections in, then you can, you know, certainly if you're kneeling, get your patient's foot on your leg. That will create a gap to get the leg sections in. The mitts, so lots and lots of tips and techniques, and hopefully when as Alice has said, once we get in the studio, we've got a bed, we can then share those tips with you. So hopefully that's okay for that. So we're okay with that style. So looking, if you've got your poster, we're going to look at the deluxe leg shape now. So this one I've got in the superfine fabric. So this is the lighter weight fabric. It's very fine. It's a lightweight mesh again, so it can be used for bathing as well. This has, the single layer has a 10 stone weight limit, which is 64 kilograms. So ideal for smaller adults and pediatrics. But we do a double layer. So the double layer will allow it to go up to 220 or 35 stone. And the reason we have to put a double layer on is because there's so much stretch. So there's so much give that if you have a single layer with a heavier person, it just stretches and stretches. So the double layer will stabilize it. But this is a medium size, and I'll put this on Judith. It's very fine. Again, it's a divided leg sling. So I'm going to put it on in the chair. Make sure I've got it right the wrong way. Label on the outside. It's important to get it as far down as possible so that you get the sling round down behind the bottom, and then the leg sections will fit better. As I said, you need to ensure they come around the femur fully. If they're fitted too far back, then it will bite it into the groin. Slip fit to the legs, both sides. But this one, it wraps around the femur, and then we've got this modesty that connects these legs together. So a little loop like that. Then you take the outside leg tape and feed it through. So slightly different compared to the first style. This is now picking up from the outside of the leg, which means it's going to give better support to the femur and the hip. So it lifts from the outside. Just make sure we've got it central.
Mandy, we just got a quick question. Just thought whilst you were hoisting up, what does cool max mean? Just because you can probably go into it more.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I will explain that. So the superfine single layer and the superfine double layer has inherent cool max in. So cool max is it has properties that help to wick away moisture. So if you think about athletes' t-shirts, they're often made of cool max, and the cool max properties has been put into this fabric, so it's inherent within the fibres to help with wicking away moisture. So if you've got someone that's got a temperature control issue, then certainly this type of fabric will help. It's only in the superfine and the superfine double layer. Again, look on the website if you're not sure, because it can be a little bit muddly, but it will explain it there. I'll try and explain it again just to confirm. Yes, you can. But we'll just put this on. All right, Jude, we're going on the green and red. Thank you. Again, just take up the slack, just go up slowly, make sure we've got it connected. There we go. So a different type of shaped leg compared to the first style. So this now is going to support each femur slightly differently. So it comes round to support the legs fully. Picking up from the outside, as I said. So if you've got someone that's a bit wriggly, got individual control from these leg paddles. So better for that type of situation. So much more supportive. And again, it's not going to cause any rotation of the hip as the leg sections are pulled through, because it's picking up from the outside. We can see this fabric, so hopefully we can see how it's hugging, just naturally hugging her contours because of the stretch of the fabric. It is a fine mesh. It's ideal for tighter chairs. Because it's a fine mesh, it will come with a little bag actually for laundering. These are provided for the super fine fabrics, so that it's like a little pillowcase for laundering to protect the fabric. Again, no handles, a little bit of access for aperture for toileting if needed. If the toilet hygiene transfer is required, then this is possible once clothing's removed. Good for this fabric, because of the stretch, is good for curvatures, asymmetrical shapes, because as I said, it will naturally hug the body. If you've got windswept hips, scoliosis and curvatures, the legs will naturally adjust because of this type of configuration. So it is a good style, a general style. It's one of our most popular because we know it will meet the needs of a lot of situations. Also on this one, I've added a hip tape. So the sling will come with a loop provision as standard, and it is to add a hip tape. So hip tapes are really helpful to help with lifting the hip. So if you think about the hip sinking and you lift that area, it will help to distribute the weight, and it will take pressure from behind the knee. So it's really a good addition if you're trying to problem solve and make it more comfortable. Now I've got one here to show you a bit close up because we do not have a zoom in at the moment. So this is a hip tape, and it comes with a slider adjuster, little bar there, and the bar is there, or D-ring. You may have a D-ring on existing ones, and that's so that if I extend this, I don't lose that loop. So there's a D-ring, or now this plastic bar. Once you've got your setting, push the bar out the way. So that's what the D-ring looks like, and it feeds through and knots back on itself. They can be fixed, or they can be fed through and then you knot it back. But the idea is to get it set to the same tension as the leg. So you want them to pick up simultaneously. At the moment, this is not tight enough, so it's not going to help at all. If I had it too tight, it will then just force the pelvis forward. So that's not going to help. So you just need to set it, take off the slack now, and then set it to pick up. And you will notice that it will help. Also good for adjusting. So if you've got someone that has really a real severe curvature and they are leaning, and you want to just try and correct their posture for the transfer, adjust them asymmetrically. There's nothing wrong with that. Sling's perfectly capable of doing that. Sometimes even picking up on a shorter, pick up one side, rather than having someone holding that person in, you can just correct by using asymmetrical pickups. All about your risk assessment and working it out, and then documenting it in the care plan, so all the carers then will be consistent with the care. So hopefully that is everything involved with the deluxe leg. There's one thing I was going to say. Often if you don't have a head support, then a neck roll can be an alternative to a full head support, but sometimes they can be too much. So the neck roll is a detachable accessory that nestles in the neck like that. It can be positioned to the side, so if you've got someone that leans, and they fix through the shoulder loop like the head support tape, and then back through the slider to adjust accordingly. But quite a nice addition. You just put it in behind Judith at the moment, and it will just support that neck, which can be more comfortable, as I said, than the full head support. So are we okay so far? Anybody got any questions on the deluxe leg?
Simon's asked, at what point do you fasten the hip tapes to the hoist? Before starting to hoist or once started lifting? What happens if being lifted from a bed?
Okay, good point. Let's just explain that then. So what you need to do is, it's all about working it out. It's a bit of a jigsaw to start with, but once it's set, then it's set. From a chair then, I would make sure I've got the hip tape adjusted to the right tension and put it on. So it might need to go on last. You've got your legs, your shoulders put on, then you put your hip tape on. Then just take up the slack. So we take up the slack and just check then. See that leg section now, leg tape is now taut, the hip's loose. So I need to tighten it. To tighten it a bit more. So before you go too far, so it's working it out, and then, because you've got to get it still a little bit more. So slacking it off again, just to tighten it up a bit more. As I said, they've got to take up the slack simultaneously. So now we've got it tighter, it will then lift that hip.
It is lifting.
Yeah.
I was sort of leaning.
So Judith's leaning now because I've only got one side put on, so she's clearly feeling the benefits of that tape. And the same will happen within the bed. So within the bed, again, you're going to have to work it out. You know, if you've got a profiling bed, it's much easier. But it might be you have to do it in 2 stages to get someone sat up with the tape still slackened, and then adjust. So gradually until you get the right tension to be beneficial. Hope that answers the question. Was there anything else, Alice?
Sorry, just having a look. The only one was about the Superfine being used in tight molded wheelchairs, but also sliding down in wheelchairs. Is the Superfine more suitable versus the Superfine Plus?
Okay. Again, it all depends on the seating. So think about what I said earlier. You know, there's a lot of things to think about. You've got to think, if the seat is really tight, then will the Superfine Plus be too thick? If there's lots of sliding, then there's things that we can do. We can look at clothing. You need to look at the chair cover, things like that. The positioning of the chair. We could put a little waist support on, which should keep it in place a little bit better. So there's lots of things to work out. It's all on an individual basis. There's no standard answer to that. So it would depend on the individual situation. But if we know about the problems, we can then help to solve them for you. The Superfine Plus, I think it's a bit thicker. It's a spacer fabric. Often it can be a little bit thick for tight molds. But some wheelchair technicians are allowing for the extra thickness, so they will check what sling is going to be used within the seating system. So I know that they allow for that fabric because it's such a popular one, and it's really comfortable. So you know, everybody needs to be involved just to check for suitability. So hopefully that's answered that. So we've looked at 2 styles. So straight leg, I would say, for your compliance scenarios, and the Deluxe will give a little bit more support because you've got the individual paddle legs. So if we look at the next one, so we've got, thanks Jude. The next style is a recline. I've got it on a different hoist, a mobile hoist now. So the recline is an oblong sling. So if you've got the poster, it's an oblong sling, looks like that, with a pommel strap. This would need to be applied on the bed. So it's no divided leg, it's a full sling. I've got it here in Superfine Plus, which is the black spacer. And I've got it as an amputee situation so that you can see that scenario if you have that. There's a pommel strap in the middle, and the pommel is a good addition, and it helps to lift the middle of the sling. So it lifts this middle, so it helps to balance the legs. They're not rolling in, so it will lift slightly there to help with that. All in one sling, no aperture, so consequently there's no you can't use it for hygiene. We could add an aperture if you need one, but then it really is not an in-situ style. So this is the in-situ style full. So you would only use this if you don't need to do a hygiene transfer. The waist support I've added here just to show you, but a little waist support that will be fed through a channel at the back that can be removable. And it's just a soft little strap with a clunk click buckle. And that can be fitted at the waist or the chest. So if it's chest level, it will be under the bust for a lady, on the chest for a gentleman, or waist. The position is dependent on the individual situation. Maybe you want to avoid a peg, or you've got a specific location you want it, but it will help with positioning the sling in the right place. So for carers, if they know there's a waist support, they've got to get the sling in position to allow that waist support to be in the right place and not fitted up here. So it's quite a good addition to have. So this style, very simple to put on, very popular because it's so smooth. You can see around the back, very smooth, to be left under for an extended period. Could be used for all situations. We've got it here, and it's a very useful style for amputees, particularly bilateral, through hip possibly. But for all situations, this is a good one, although it limits you for access for toileting, which I said. Can I have a head support? I've just got a neck roll put in there to show that one, but quite straightforward. Needs to be applied on the bed. It can be in the Superfine as well. So Superfine double layer, or the Superfine Plus, which is this one. Any questions on the in-situ recline, Alice?
We've got a couple, one in relation to the recline and then another one afterwards. So why would it not be in situ if it has an aperture?
Because you'll be sat on a ridge. So think about, if someone sat on a ridge, it's a complete bound circle. Down to your risk assessment if you think that's okay, but you just need to be mindful that there will be binding, and it'd be right in that place. May be appropriate, may be suitable, but that would be down to your own risk assessment. Okay, no, that's a good point. The straight leg. So the straight leg, you can take the legs to the side. So the sling is quite high. So you actually not got the binding around. So it's a good point. It is all about balance care. You've got to weigh it up. We're just giving you options, the choices that then you can, apply to your individual situation. What was the other question, Alice?
We've got another one, and then I'll do my other one.
Okay.
Is an in-situ sling suitable for a quadriplegic, tetraplegic?
Again, absolutely. The choices are there. Certainly, if you've got find the right style. Yes, I mean, you can use for any condition. If we find the right style, the right size, and the right fabric, like a jigsaw. We're building up. You look at the suitable style for that condition, and then you think about the sizing and then the fabrics if you need to add anything on. So any of our slings can be used for any condition. It's just finding the most appropriate one.
And then your final question I've got is, could you describe which slings have darts in the aperture and which do not?
Okay, a lot of the slings will have shaping. So the shaping to make the bucketing. This one will have a slight shaping to the sides, so it makes it bucket. So they are to the sides. The deluxe ones will have shaping so that the leg sections are pulled around. So they're very flat shaped darts, but it will depend on the style. So I would say probably most of them will have some slight shaping so the body will bucket within it. Are we good?
Yeah, that's everything. Thanks, Mandy.
Okay. Yes, Julie's just reminded me that this one on the Recline comes as standard with provision for hip tapes. So we can certainly add the hip tape as we talked about before, and that will help lift. You can see it just lifts that area to distribute the weight, which can be really beneficial. Good morning, Andrew. I can see you've joined us. Would you mind turning off your camera, please, so that we can continue filming? Thank you very much for that. Right, I'll just take this one out of the way, because we've now got a fairly new sling for Silvalea, and it is a bit of a hybrid between the Deluxe leg and the Recline. So it looks like this. So it basically is an oblong shape, but with deluxe paddles for the legs. And I don't know if you can, I can come a bit closer. Hold it up. So when we talked about the shaping, there's a little bit of shaping here that will mean it will fold and the body will bucket within it. If we don't put any shaping in, it's a flat fabric. So you've just got a flat fabric that won't then mold around the body. So that will just explain a little bit of the shaping there. But this is we call it the Recline Deluxe. It would need to be applied on the bed because actually it comes right underneath the bottom. So right under the bottom, so it's really smooth under the bottom, and the IT area, which is really important for pressure points. But then you've got the paddle legs, which give you the extra support for the femurs. So it's a good combination. So the legs apply like the Deluxe, and you've got your modesty, and then the outside tape comes through. If we just attach on the green leg, red shoulder. Thanks, Jude. She's doing really well. It's not easy. And this one does have a hip tape. So we've got this sample has a hip tape. Put it on the green one. And we just gradually take up the slack and just check we've got them all on. We've now got 3 tapes either side. So checking the tension. Okay, that's good. So this is the Recline Deluxe. Individual paddle. You've got someone a bit wriggly. You've got individual support from those paddle legs. If Judith was to extend, it's not going to shoot up into a groin because you've got the support of those leg paddles there. Got a hip tape here that's picking up at the hip, but it's a really smooth sling. Comes right underneath. There's no aperture for toileting. So it's very, very smooth, hugging the body. You can have a head support added, or the neck roll, so things can be added on, and a waist support or chest strap, so things you can add on to that. but really, really nice shape, but needs to be applied on the bed, either by rolling or introducing with flat sheets, as we slightly covered earlier. Yeah. So because the divided leg, you've got a pommel on your chair. Nice young boys that need to get to a bottle, things like that. So, you know, it is a useful shape and fairly new to Silvalea. Any questions on the Recline Deluxe?
No questions. Yeah.
Okay. But just to remind you that everything that we've covered is on the website. There are lots of extra helpful points on the website, sizing, measuring, as we saw. So the difference between the first Deluxe and this one is that it comes around under the bottom. There's no aperture. So the first Deluxe is an aperture. This one is, think about your Recline that comes right underneath the bottom, but has got these Deluxe legs added. Hip tapes can be detachable. You can ask for them to be detachable. So certainly if you don't want them all the time, then yes, they can be fixed or detachable. You just need to tell us which option you'd like. If you are not sure about the differences, once you get charts, do you want to lower that down, please? Have a look at the poster, because on the poster there are some drawings, outline drawings, so you can see straight away the difference of the sling shape, which will give you a bit more understanding of the differences between this Recline Deluxe and the first Deluxe we saw. So hopefully that will help you. Right, so we've seen 4 out of the 6, which hopefully is giving you a bit of food for thought there. But the last 2 slings are slings that go on a stud type hoist. So all the slings so far have had loops or the slot that hook onto a spreader bar with a hook. If you have a stud hoist, then you need a sling with a specific clip. Just bring this one in. Thanks, Jude. So the sling needs to have a clip, which I've got here to show you. So the clip looks like that. The universal clip that goes on the majority of the hook spreader bars. So this is a wishbone type spreader bar. You can see nice open spreader bar that you can then clip on shoulder and leg. 4 attachments there. Great, simple, good for carers. They've only got to hook up 1 clip, not got to think about all the other choices. But it has to have a certain type of sling that will work on this configuration, and we call it our high easy range. Standard high easy is this one, which looks very similar to the very first style, but the legs are very short, and because they're coming up to the spreader bar here and not up to a hook above the head, so consequently the style of the sling, the legs are shorter. But there's 2 options. So we have this one, which has got the divided leg, or the one that's got a fuller body. So it's filled in where the aperture is, it's filled further in, so it will bucket the bottom. So there's less aperture with this one. We call it the all-in-one. And it's a good sling if we have an amputee situation, so that the stumps don't slip back through the aperture. If they've got this type of configuration, then certainly this is a better one for amputees. But all other scenarios also good if you don't want the aperture, because it's smoother. Again, it's probably clearer to see on the drawing. You can see the outline of the sling more clearly. But if you don't ever deal with this type of hoist, then you haven't got to worry about this choice. You've just got to think about the other 4. So are there any questions about the high easy range with the clips?
Mandy, we had a question earlier about someone who'd been using the High Easy for years and it needed replacing due to growth, but they had it for dual fixings. And obviously we no longer do them. So they've just asked why we no longer do the dual fixings.
Okay, the dual fixings then would be a tape that had a clip and a loop so that you could interchange between the hoists. It would have to be this configuration of sling because you've got to work to this hoist, but then with the loop on it would work on the standard spreader bar. The reason we've stopped is that there's too much potential for it to be misused. So, nowadays with new regulations, we are now MDR compliant, which is the medical device regulation because of Brexit and going into Europe and all over the world. The regulations have had to change and we've had to tighten up on what we can do. And if there's any potential that we know of, then we cannot offer it. And sadly, over the years, there's been a little bit of misuse. Someone's tried to put the clip on a loop or hook spreader bar. So it is unfortunate, and we know historically that it's been a great solution for many clients. But unfortunately now, with our new regulations, we've had to stop. So that's the answer, I'm afraid. There was one thing I remembered about. So this configuration, just going on to the High Easy shape, as I said, you could only have this shape. So you can't put the Deluxe legs on this. You can't put the Recline on this. So sometimes you are limited with this configuration, and it can be that the hoist is wrong. So think about anyone that's really got severe curvature. They're very asymmetrical. You need to try and, balance things a bit better. Where the Deluxe leg is brilliant, hip tapes, all that, you can't put that on this hoist. So you have to just stick to this. So sometimes the hoist is wrong for that particular condition, and then you need to think about a different one. So as I said earlier, the hoist is really important. If you've got someone that's very frail and they've got painful joints, you've got to think about the width of that spreader bar to make sure it's wide enough and it won't protract the shoulders and squash someone. So the tapes are going to be taken slightly out to balance better than taking them up to a narrow spreader bar that does this. So working it out to make sure that you've got the right equipment and then the right style of sling. So let me think. Well, I think we've covered all the styles. So just to recap, your poster, which Alice will make sure you've got, details all the styles we've got, we've shown this morning. Again, it's more information on the website. The only thing that's on here that I haven't mentioned is that we do point out the Parasilk fabric. So many years ago, our first moulded wheelchair sling was made in Parasilk, and it was very successful. So it's a fine layer of Parasilk, well, 2 layers that we used to, rub together and then would stop any friction. And it used to be the moulded wheelchair sling, and very popular for moulded chairs. So tight moulded chairs, it would be ideal. But then more and more people wanted that type of sling for standard seating. Of course, the Parasilk fabric was then too slippy. So far too slippy in an open or less moulded chair. So that's when we introduced the Superfine and then the Superfine Plus. So the Parasilk is still available, but is just not as popular. So we don't tend to do many of them anymore, but certainly we will do repeats. And in some situations, we can offer the Parasilk. The other thing is these slings, as we've said, we talked about the tailoring and the shaping, because they're specific to the styles. People sometimes want that style for bathing in a standard bathing mesh. So that is available. So if you want a deluxe leg sling in situ shape, but for bathing, you could request that shape in standard poly, the mesh. You need to tell us that. Otherwise, it will be a standard flat fabric without the shaping. Yeah, just saw that Parasilk's popular in Australia, and yes, it is. Surprisingly, we're trying to get you onto Superfine and Superfine Plus, but obviously it suits everybody in the organisations over there, and that's fine. We will provide them. But the Parasilk can also has its limitations, A, because it's very slippy, and B, because it can cause some overheating. It's a very tight woven fabric. But if it suits you guys in Australia, then absolutely fine. We're happy to provide it. So that's it, basically, everybody. I don't think we've forgotten anything. The only thing I was going to point out was that we now have a sling selector poster. And I don't know if Alice, I forgot to ask you, have you got it handy just to quickly bring up so that we can show everybody this poster?
If you give me 2 seconds, I can load it for you. I was just going to also add, I don't know if you did say it, the Superfine and Superfine Plus can be used for bathing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the mesh fabrics, think about the Superfine, Superfine Plus, double layer Superfine. That's a mesh fabric. Bathing is fine, particularly if it's more comfortable, if you need that little bit of stretch with the fabric. But the poster that Alice is going to bring up is
just loading it now.
It's, sorry, I should have said earlier.
No, it's fine, don't worry.
It details all of our slings that are on the website, so it reflects what's available on the website. And we've designed it so that it's in families of styles of sling. So you've got line 1 is all the general standard shapes, then the deluxe shapes, etc. So it will give you an idea if you're trying to select a range that you need, you know, a straight standard style, a toileting style. You'll be able to use this poster. You just pan out a bit so we've got the full poster. They can just see the whole thing, and then you can select from there. So it's really useful. It will give you an idea of what we do. Of course, there's many other things we do that aren't on the website, but we're trying to put our most popular on the website, and that they are available. So we can provide slings quickly for you. So you can, hopefully, all those listed on the website will be in stock. And that's why we encourage everyone to go from that list. But if you would like this list, then we can certainly let you have one. All we ask is that you kindly just fill in the evaluation form, and then Alice will send it back to you. Thanks, Alice.
Yep, I will send out an email after this session today, and I will put on the link to feedback and also a document that you can attach. If you do complete it, you get entered into a draw to win £100 Amazon vouchers, which is being drawn in July, I believe. And then once you've completed it, I'll send this Sling Selector poster out to you.
Thanks, Alice. If you can just come back to me.
We do have a couple questions as well, Mandy.
Yes, I just saw one actually regarding, are all slings available in mesh? Yes, of course they are. So any of our slings we can provide in a standard mesh fabric. Certainly, if you look at the website, it will give you the fabric choices and the codes to help you out. So it will tell you we've got this deluxe shape sling. It can be provided in the in-situ list. It will just be this in-situ fabrics, but you still can have them in the standard mesh. So yes. Alice, do you want to go through any outstanding questions, please?
We just have a question. Any good recommendations for hip spiker casts, please?
Okay. Now that is a good one. We used to do a spiker sling, and it was brilliant. It was like the deluxe leg, but it had the full leg paddles, so they went right to the ankle. But now we've discovered that the new chunk chairs, which are predominantly used for hip spikers, they're not compatible with this sling. It's just more challenging to get in. So with a cast, depending on where the cast is, then the Deluxe leg is good. So the Deluxe leg sling with the individual paddles with an inside leg tape. So you don't connect them, you have an inside leg tape. Let me just explain that. Jude, if you can just hold this up. So we have two tapes. If we can create that. So a full tape here. Let me see if I can explain it with a bit of a demo. Hang on. Where's my tape gone? Just going to hook something up to explain. Where's the hip tape gone? Yeah. I'll just recreate it with improvising so you can see. So with hip spikers, you'd have an inside tape and an outside tape so that you could then position the legs accordingly depending on the splay and if there's a broomstick and things like that. So certainly we would probably suggest the Deluxe leg, maybe then extend these paddles to go further down the knee for support. So I would look at that. Just contact us if you have that situation, we can help further. Another question, Alice?
No, I think that's everything.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to Judith and Alice. But, you know, I know it's complicated and, you know, it's all about a balanced approach to in-situ slings. There's lots to factor in, and I know it's not straightforward, but, you know, we will help as much as we can. Alice will do an online e-assessment quickly for you if you need help, so that we can then demonstrate or advise whilst you're with your patient. So please, you know, just ask. But thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you will join us in the future sessions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Judith. And thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone, for joining.